What if I told you that, in one of the wealthiest nations on earth, parents are skipping meals so their kids can eat? That children are studying under flickering candlelight, not because it's cozy, but because their families can't afford electricity? This isn't a dystopian novel. This is Australia in 2025, where the so-called cost of living isn't about living, it's about barely surviving. Let me paint you a picture. A mum in suburban Melbourne sits at her kitchen table, staring at a pile of bills she can't pay. Her kids are asleep, but her mind is racing. How will she afford groceries this week? She's already cut her own meals to one a day, telling her kids she's not hungry, so they don't worry. This isn't a one-off. This is her reality, and it's the reality for millions of Australian families right now. The human toll. Let's talk about Sarah, a single mum of 2 boys in Brisbane. She works 2 jobs, cleaning houses by day, stacking shelves at night. Her kids, Jack and Liam, are growing fast, and so is their appetite. But Sarah's fridge is often empty. She sends them to school with half a sandwich and an apple, hoping it's enough to keep them focused. Last week, Jack came home and quietly asked, "Mom, can we have meat for dinner soon?" Sarah's heart broke. She smiled, said, "Soon, love," and turned away so he wouldn't see her tears. This isn't just Sarah's story. Across Australia, families are making impossible choices. Do they pay the electricity bill or buy medicine for their sick child? Do they fill the car with fuel to get to work or buy new shoes for their kid who's outgrown their only pair? These aren't choices. They're traps. And they're tearing families apart. The numbers don't lie. Here's the cold, hard truth. A family of 4 needs at least $6,000 a month to cover the basics: food, utilities, transport. That's before rent or mortgage. In cities like Sydney or Melbourne, rent alone can eat up $2,800 a month for a modest home. Do the math. That's nearly $9,000 a month just to keep a roof over your head and food on the table. But the average Australian household brings in just $6,700 a month after tax. That's a $2,300 shortfall every single month. It's not just a gap. It's a chasm. Families are drowning in it. They're borrowing money for groceries, racking up credit card debt for school uniforms, and praying their car doesn't break down because a single repair could tip them over the edge. This isn't living. This is surviving, and barely at that. The grocery squeeze. Walk into any supermarket and you'll feel the sting. A loaf of bread that cost $3 2 years ago is now $5. A kilo of mince? Try $16. A carton of eggs? $8. Families are swapping meat for lentils, not because they're going vegan, but because they can't afford protein. Kids are growing up on diets of pasta and canned beans, not because it's healthy, but because it's cheap. Charities like Food Bank are seeing queues stretch longer every week. Grandparents, single parents, even dual-income families are lining up, heads down, hoping no one recognizes them. One volunteer told me about a little girl who whispered, "Can I take some extra for Mum? She hasn't eaten today." That's the reality of Australia in 2025. Kids as young as 8 worrying about their parents' hunger. The energy crisis. Then there's the energy crisis. Power bills have skyrocketed, with some families facing $4,000 a year just to keep the lights on. Over half of Australian households are late on their utility bills, living in fear of disconnection. In regional towns, families are burning candles at night, not for ambience, but to save on electricity. Kids are doing homework by torchlight, their breath visible in unheated homes during winter. One dad, Michael, told me he unplugs every appliance in his house when it's not in use, hoping to shave a few dollars off the bill. His daughter asked why they couldn't turn on the heater anymore. He told her it was broken. The truth? He's choosing between warmth and food. The hidden costs. It's not just food and power. Transport is a silent killer. Fuel prices have families rationing car trips like they're rationing meals. Parents are walking miles to job interviews or skipping medical appointments because public transport fares are too steep. Kids miss out on sports or school camps because the bus ticket is a luxury. Healthcare is another nightmare. Families are splitting pills, skipping dental checkups, and Googling symptoms because a doctor's visit costs $90 before you even get to the pharmacy. Mental health? Forget it. A single therapy session can cost $250. More than a week's groceries. The kids pay the price. The real tragedy is what this does to kids. They're growing up in homes filled with stress, where parents whisper about bills after bedtime. They're wearing hand-me-downs that don't fit, missing out on school excursions, and falling behind because they can't afford Wi-Fi for online learning. Teachers are noticing kids arriving at school hungry, too embarrassed to admit they didn't eat breakfast. Some schools have started breakfast clubs, just to make sure kids get one meal a day. These kids aren't just missing meals, they're missing childhood. They're learning that life is about sacrifice, not opportunity. And that's a wound that doesn't heal easily. Who's to blame? So, how did we get here? Australia is sitting on vast resources, minerals, gas, farmland. Yet, ordinary families are struggling like never before. Government policies have failed to keep up. Promises of $200 energy rebates sound nice, but they're a drop in the bucket when your power bill is $1,000 a quarter. Tax breaks that give families an extra $15 a week don't help when groceries have gone up $100. Meanwhile, housing shortages drive up rents, and unchecked supermarket prices keep climbing. Politicians earning six figures make decisions for families scraping by on $60,000 a year. They're out of touch and families are paying the price. This isn't just a crisis, it's a betrayal. Australia was built on the promise of a fair go, but right now that promise is broken. Families are fighting to survive, not to thrive. Kids are going hungry in a country that exports billions in food. Parents are losing sleep over bills in a nation that boasts one of the world's strongest economies. We need real solutions, not band-aids. Affordable housing, fairer prices, and policies that put families first, not corporations or political agendas. Australian families aren't asking for handouts. They're asking for a system that doesn't crush them. So what's next? Will we let this become the new normal, where survival is a luxury? Or will we demand better, for Sarah, for Michael, for their kids, and for every family fighting to keep their heads above water? The choice is ours, but the clock is ticking. If the story hit you as hard as it hit me, share it. Talk about it. Let's shine a light on the real cost of survival in Australia. Because if we don't, the next generation will inherit a country where only the wealthy get to live, and the rest of us just scrape by.